Tonight's episode of Legacy Battle is brought to you by Atlas Benefits.
Atlas Benefits has solutions for your insurance needs. Atlas Benefits can help you obtain Medicare, health, or life insurance and employee benefits. You can find them on the web at www.atlasbenefits.com.
Or you can contact Rob Ducey or Roy Smith at 727-600-2892 and mention Legacy Battle Podcast. Atlas Benefits has all the solutions for your insurance needs. Enjoy the show. This is Legacy Battle. Make sure you hit subscribe on YouTube, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Podcasts. Join that Facebook group. I am Michael Adams, creator of Legacy Battle. My panelists tonight from the Gridiron Battle Zone, Brian King. From Steelers Nation South, Rollo Coffin. And Penn State Collegiate All-Star, Kevin Adams. Our special guest tonight, he's a former boxer. He's got a record of 43 wins, 7 losses, and 1 draw with 34 wins by TKO. He's fought guys like Witherspoon, Holyfield, Bo, Tyson. He was the inaugural winner of the IBF WBF Heavyweight Championship belts in '92. And, of course, he held the WBC Heavyweight title for 2 years. This guy is just an absolute stud in the ring, one of the best left jabs in the business. And coming this April 2022, he's been elected into the National Boxing Hall of Fame. We've got Pinklon Thomas. Pink, how are you today?
Hey, Mike, I'm doing great, man. And I just want to say thank you for having me, man.
It's an honor to have you here. I feel like I should do like the not worthy thing, you know?
Oh, come on.
Well, so tonight's debate, we're going to be debating boxers from different eras, kind of a then and now type thing. And we're going to see at the end of the night, maybe who would have been the best. And we're going to go kind of from in reverse order here. So we're going to start from the present and go to Mike Tyson.
Mike Tyson, nickname Iron Mike, Kid Dynamite, the baddest man on the planet. One of the greatest heavyweight boxers of all time. He won gold medals as an amateur in the 81, 82 Junior Olympic Games. Competed professionally from 85 to 2005. If I'm not mistaken, he might be having a match come up here soon, too. He was 18 years old when he debuted. He TKO'd his first opponent in the first round, and he actually fought 15 matches in his first year. That's a lot. That's a lot of fights in 1 year. He was the undisputed heavyweight champion from 87 to 90. He won his first 19 fights by knockout, and 12 of those were in the first round. And he won 26 of his first 28 fights by TKO or knockout, with 16 of those being in the first round. He started his career 37-0 and won 45 of his first 46 fights. He holds the record for the youngest boxer ever to win the heavyweight title when he was 20 years old. He was the first to hold the WBA, the WBC, and the IBF titles at the same time. You know, he became the lineal champion when he knocked out Spinks in 91 seconds in the first round. In 1992, he did run into some legal issues, but upon his release, in 95, he regained the WBA and WBC titles in 96. He is one of 6 boxers to regain a heavyweight title after losing it. He joins Ali, Witherspoon, Holyfield, Foreman, and Patterson in doing that. We all know in 97, he got the DQ for biting Holyfield's ear, and that was a rematch against Holyfield, and he lost. Tyson was known for his high-intensity boxing style, had a knockout to win percentage of 88%. He ranked 16th on the Ring Magazine's list of 100 greatest punchers of all time, and first on ESPN's list of hardest hitters in heavyweight history. Sky Sports described him as perhaps the most ferocious fighter to step in the professional ring, He has been inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame and the World Boxing Hall of Fame. He finished with a record of 50 wins, 44 knockouts, 6 losses, and 2 no contests. He was the Fighter of the Year for the Ring magazine in 86 to 88. And who can forget his video game? Still one of the best boxing video games to ever come out. And don't forget, this man knocked out Gilliganakis in The Hangover. Yeah, so this man is definitely to be
So, Pink, was there ever a boxer who could knock somebody out with just one punch as well as Mike Tyson could, in your opinion?
Well, I think Mike was a great champion. He intimidated a lot of guys because of his actions, because he took guys out in the first round. He went after them with a vengeance. And, of course, when I fought Mike, I think I had a little bit of experience I tried to capture the moment of not being able to get hit by all the bombs that he was throwing, but, for me, Mike was a great champion. He held his own. I can appreciate him as a champion. Just a tough call with him being, in the league of all the elites, and then to come up with one is going to be crazy.
Yeah, that's what we do on here. It's a hard job. All right, let's move on to our second boxer tonight, and that's going to be Muhammad Ali.
Muhammad Ali. Well, I'm going to get to some of the accomplishments in a moment, but first, I believe it's important to understand just who Muhammad Ali was. Ali was controversial. He changed his name from Cassius Clay when he had a sort of spiritual awakening and turned to the Islamic religion. This caused a stir in the boxing community at the time, which was mostly Christian and Jewish. Ali was patriotic to some, but treasonous to others. When in 1966, he refused to be drafted for the Vietnam War, he was stripped of his title, and he lost 4 years of boxing in the prime of his career. Ali was intimidating, and not just because of what he could do in the ring, but he often defeated opponents before matches even started by just getting under their skin with his legendary trash talk. Like versus Joe Frazier, it's going to be a chilla and a killer and a thriller when I fight that gorilla in Manila. Or against Sonny Liston when he just said, he's too ugly to be the champion. Or my personal favorite was against Floyd Patterson when he said, if you ever dream of beating me, you better wake up and apologize. The guy just talks so much trash and just mess with guys' heads. And Ali was a genius in the ring. He had that fancy footwork. It really had never been seen before, especially by heavyweights. Opponents had so much trouble connecting with this guy. They got frustrated. He was a tough guy to cut off the ring, with. And then he had the rope-a-dope. In 1974, in a match against George Foreman, he allowed himself to be hit while he was against the ropes at the edge of the ring. And then when Foreman least expected it, he bounced off the ropes and devastated him with a powerful counter punch. There was just so much about Ali that made him legendary. But let's look at his accomplishments now. 56-5, 37 knockouts. He had a gold medal in the 1960 Olympics. He beat Sonny Liston, Floyd Patterson, Joe Frazier, Ken Norton, George Foreman, and Leon Spinks. He was in the fight of the century, the Thriller in Manila, the Rumble in the Jungle, and he was the first heavyweight fighter to win the championship on 3 separate occasions. And he successfully defended his title 19 times. Before he defeated Sonny Liston in 1964, he proclaimed, "I am the greatest." And really, I see no lies.
So, Pink, Ali, this guy fought wars in the ring. You just don't see fights like that nowadays, it seems. I mean, what are your thoughts on Ali? I'm sure you probably met him, and not just inside the ring, but outside the ring. What kind of a man is he? was he?
Well, Ali was very a humble guy. I emulated a lot of things from Ali, just the being nice, picking up kids, being a kid advocate. He was a jokester. He kept you laughing. Nothing bad. You never heard him say nothing bad about nobody. And his style in the ring, and even outside the ring, he was a master. He could stick, he could move, he could dance, he could punch. You know, he just wasn't a great body puncher. But through it all, you know, and what he's been through, you know, is a giant in the game, you know. Again, you know, you got a guy who is considered the greatest of all time, we claim and say, you know, as we all would, you know, have said at one time or another. But again, you're dealing with some of the greatest champions of all time, you know, in the world who have competed. And to compare them, to see the styles, it's again another look under the microscope.
Brian, if you add in those 4 years that he missed, like, and he gets all those wins during that time, I mean, maybe add in one loss during that time, but still, his numbers are going to be through the roof.
Oh, I mean, absolutely. I mean, he was riding high after that, you know, after that win against Sonny Liston and, you know, a couple of title defenses. And, you know, I mean, at that point, he hadn't even lost yet. So, I mean, who knows? Who knows what, you know, with that kind of confidence that he had going and that, you know, not having that 4-year layoff of, you know, what that did to, you know, just not having that ring action.
Right. All right, let's move on to, we're going to go back even further in time here, going to Rocky Marciano. So The Rock, he's got a couple nicknames here, The Rock from Brockton, the Brockton Blockbuster. I kind of like those. I'm going to use that sometime for myself. I like that a lot. But anyways, he started fighting in 1947, so 56, 70 years it's been. But he became the world heavyweight champion in 1952, and he held it all the way until 1956. Had a record of 49-0. He's the only guy we're talking about tonight who didn't lose, with 43 KOs. And he's the only heavyweight champ to retire undefeated. His 85.7% win to KO is the highest in history among heavyweights. Ring Magazine has him as the 14th greatest puncher of all time and the 6th greatest heavyweight champion of all time. So Rocky had stamina, he had punching power, very durable chin. He could definitely take a hit. And he was always coming at you. He never stopped attacking, which was one of his strengths. And he holds the longest undefeated streak as a heavyweight champion, tied with Brian Nielsen. It's been said that he didn't fight great fighters, but that wasn't his fault, really. He could only fight who there was during that time period. So that's kind of a misconception, in my opinion. He fought everyone that came up. So he fought who he could. There was a computer fight done that had Ali versus Marciano, and 2 fights each. They did 2 fights. Both of them won one of those computer fights. So you can kind of take that for what it's worth. And of course, you know, Rocky Balboa, played by Sylvester Stallone, his fighting style that he used in that, he actually took that from Rocky Marciano. And if you remember in the first film, he had the picture of Marciano in his apartment there. So, you know, unfortunately, Marciano, he died in 1969 in a plane crash, much too young. Nothing he could really, you know, say about that, unfortunately. He was a great boxer, undefeated. I think the only other one is Mayweather, who's not in the heavyweight class. So, Pink, I mean, what are your thoughts on, one, being able to stay undefeated during your entire tenure, and your thoughts on Marciano?
Hey, you know, I'm really impressed. I was reading some stuff on Marciano that I didn't know about his amateur career. I think he was like 8-4. He had 12 amateur fights, and he was 8-4. And to go on to fight the least amount of amateur fights that he did do, and then go into the pros and stand strong and fight some great fighters. Whether and as you say, in that era, behind the Joe Louis line, it was faded, but at the same time, I give credit to every heavyweight that ever was a heavyweight and a champion. A champion, because the work that you got to put in, the time that you got to put in, the things that you got to do to excel, to be the best, I give all the credit in the world. And, to hear, of course, not knowing him before one time, but to read about his power and what he did and how he put the pressure on you. And then he had the good endurance and the stamina. Wow, another tough look at, the competition to be looked at and to be judged.
All right, let's move on to our final fighter tonight. That's going to be Joe Louis.
Brown Bomber, Joseph Louis Barrow. He made his debut at 17. He was called Joe Louis by rumor that he wasn't literate enough to write his name completely. So he wrote Joe Louis on his first fight card, and that's how the name stuck. He was 50-4 as an amateur. He was 66-3 as a professional. So he fought over 123 times in his career. That's a lot of fights. I think that's the most of any of these contestants that we're debating tonight. He held the heavyweight title from 1937 to 1949, and from January 39 to May 41, he defended his title 13 times. So in 29 months, he defended his title 13 times. He won 39 straight fights between his loss to Ezra Charles and Max Schmeling. He won 39 straight fights. He lost 3 fights professionally, and those fighters that he lost to had over 200 combined wins between those 3. Max Schmeling, Rocky Marciano, Ezra Charles. He was completely different to Muhammad Ali. He actually had, by his manager, 7 commandments that he had to fight under. He is never to have his picture taken with a white woman. He was never to go to a nightclub alone. He would not have any soft fights. There were no fixed fights. He would never gloat over opponent, and he would never He would live and fight clean, and he would he would always have to deadpan in front of the camera. So he always had to look at the camera. So he's 4th in ESPN's top fighters of all time, 4th in NBC Sports top fighters of all time. The Brown Bomber, my pick.
So much like Marciano, it was also said of Joe Louis that there was a time period where he was basically fighting the bum of the month club, is what they called it. I find that totally unfair. This is a man who had 13 title defenses, and they're calling him bum of the month club. That's absolutely ridiculous. Pink, I mean, you can only fight who's thrown at you, especially back in the day. He did everything he was supposed to, just like The Rock. I mean, what's your thoughts on Joe Louis? He had great punching power for sure.
Well, my father, that's the first fighter that I ever even heard about. I can remember I was young, very young, 6, 7 years old. My father would come in, and him and his buddies would be talking, and they'd have Bible study, and they would come in. Of course, they'd be drinking their liquor and reading the Bible and talking, arguing the Bible. And my mother would look at them and she'd get upset. But then the subject would change real fast. And I heard my father go into the story about Joe Louis and talked about Joe Louis, him losing his first paycheck to Max Schmeling and all this stuff. So that's what really brought attention to my eyes about Joe Louis. A lot of similarities, with the reach, the height, the weight of Joe Louis. But you know what? One of the greatest champions of all time. I mean, what can you say? But you know what, Mike?
Yeah.
You know what? To sum it all up, you know what? I can't even do it. I can't say who. Because it was time, it was in a different era. You had Ali who could stick and move and dance. You had Marciano who could put the pressure on you and hit you at it with one big punch. Yeah, you know, and back in that time, you know, you didn't have no distractions. You didn't have no, technology and all that stuff. You just went to work and did what you had to do. And, because I fought Mike, I think Mike was a tough kid. I just questioned his endurance and stamina to go the distance. But again, you got to take off the 3 years that he had behind his conviction, to what he could have developed over that period of time, So and with Ali missing the 3 years that he had already was the greatest performer inside and outside the ring. What can you say? I really don't know. I'm back in the day, up until this point, we've had great champions in a great era, great entertainment. All I do know now is that we don't have one.
That is true. The heavyweight
We don't
division.
have one that we can cherish, love, and really share the camaraderie about. But for the four that has been mentioned, it's a conversation piece.
We'll
if I
give
can,
you,
let me jump in real quick. Something else about Joe Louis is, you consider the time period when he came in. Being African American, that was a rough time period to be an athlete. I mean, we saw, like with Jackie Robinson getting introduced to baseball, or Ernie Davis and football. That was a rough time, and for him to perform as well as he did, I'm sure he dealt with a lot of that, those kind of stuff that made things difficult for a person like him.
and that's coming off the heels of what they did to Jack Johnson, So
Yeah.
definitely a tough time. So we'll give you a pass on your vote, but we're gonna vote twos here. So Brian, who are you taking? Can't vote for your own guys.
Okay, it's very difficult, but I'm going to go with Mike Tyson on this one. The reason why was just the way that I think that during his peak, there was really nobody matched his peak of just coming in and just devastating guys, and just, I mean, we saw it like with the Michael Spinks. Undefeated, Olympic hero, everything Michael Spinks had going for him. And then he only lasts like a minute and a half in the ring with Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson could just come in there and just devastate people and intimidate, champions and great boxers. So I got to go with Mike Tyson.
I'm going to go next, and I completely agree with what Pink said. I don't think Tyson had the stamina to go a long time. I mean, how many of his longer matches did he win? Very, very few. Now, I know he ended up with some bad management later on that, lost his really good trainers and all that, but he didn't have stamina, so I can't pick him. Ali is as good as all four boxers we're talking about, and I think just because of the show and spectacle that he put on, I got to vote for Ali. Kevin?
Tyson only lost 6 matches, man. So to say
he was winning in 2 rounds.
Yeah. So
he actually has the most losses of anybody we're talking about tonight. So
yeah,
true, but we have people that knocked out people as quickly as he has, as many times as he has. So
anyway,
I'm gonna go with Marciano, the undefeated record. That's pretty impressive.
Oh, jeez. Rollo.
I'm going with Marciano. of all these fighters that we're talking about tonight, Marciano is the only one that faced one of these opponents up here. So he beat Joe Louis, and he went 49-0, and that's a difficult thing to do in boxing. One bad night, one good punch, you're out.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So, Pink, do you want to just stay unvoted, or you want to throw a vote in for somebody?
You know what? I love Muhammad. I always said I would have never even fought Muhammad. I mean, we became very good friends. With Mike, I love him. I call him a kid, unfortunately. I mean, he's younger than me, of course, but a couple of years, 3 or 4 years younger. But, you know, I think a lot of Mike too, but then Marciano, I never knew, but I can only imagine, you know, what he could have done and what he would have done to certain fighters. And Muhammad Ali is the master. So we got Joe, we got Ali, we got Mike Tyson, and we got Marciano, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So again, I would have to say I'm not gonna vote.
Fair enough. So that's 1 for Tyson tonight, 1 for Ali, 2 for Marciano. Let's move into our Q&A for Pink. Well, looks like I got the win tonight, so I get first question. So let's start out with this. Can you tell me about Project Pink?
Wow, Project Pink. You know, Project Pink is a great program that I started, and started from it started in the early '90s, and it was called the Youth Anti-Drug Crime Program, and I was working with juveniles from all the different counties here in Florida, and the detention centers from each city and county, and we end up having one facility that will facilitate these guys, the level 6, level 8 serious habitual offenders. And they would all have to they go through the judge, they go to court, and they get sentenced to our program. And so as I work with these kids, and then I realized where I come from and where I've been and what I've been through, wow, you know, I came up with the idea of Project Pink, Pride Neighborhood Kids and Mentors, because I was working as a tech and then as a counselor, and it was these kids was from single, you know, moms, families, drug dealers, you know, home invaders, different ones, and they had no respect for women, no respect at all, period. And as I grew up, and you know, I didn't grow up in the projects, I didn't grow up in the hood, but I went to the hood, I went to the projects, now I got out and I did the things, I got caught up in the rhythm. So I seen all of that, and I seen how to, you know, to communicate and deal with it, and I could deal with the knuckleheads that was coming in there. So when I thought about Project Pink, I said, wow, Project Pink is all over the world. Project Pink is a program that these kids, you know, you got this type of environment. As a champion, you know, and in preparation, getting ready in Philadelphia, growing up in Pontiac, Michigan, and hanging in New York and California, going to Thailand and different countries, you know. There was a ghetto, there was a hood, there was things that was going on. So I said, our Pride Neighborhood Kids was what I wanted to do was to help and turn these kids around, the ones who was going through that, who was you know, being encouraged and influenced by a family member because, you know, that's all they knew. So I wanted to establish them. I wanted to establish them as in whatever skill they wanted to become. So I put together a training routine, and I continue to develop it. And the routine developed athletes. It did not only for football, basketball, track, boxing, hockey, soccer, whatever. I developed the muscle. I developed the mind. I developed the spirit. The mental, the spiritual, and the physical all comes together. I have 4 father-sons right now. And then ones who don't want to compete, they can't take a shot, don't want to take a shot, then, but if they're in school and they want to go to, I got kids going to school who want to be a doctor, got kids who want to be a scientist, so what I do is I prepare them physically and to go through the extreme and over and above to call of duty, to get to where they are just totally mentally and physically exhausted. And then I will tell them, and I'll show them love. I'll pour water on them, and I'll bring them back, and then I can talk to them and say, hey, look, I'm impressed. I love you, man. You did a great thing. You know what you've done? If you went beyond the call of duty, and what I want to see you do is to apply these principles and skills to any and everything that you want to do. If you want to be a doctor, if you want to be a lawyer, if you want to be an Indian chief, this is what you got to go through to get to it. And it ain't got to be physical. You got to have the book knowledge. That mentality has got to be strong as your physical ability to go through the extreme of what you just went through, And so that's what I get out of it. And that's what I push and I influence the young people to do. Not only the young people, but as I've developed them, I've developed them as kids to teenagers to adults, and some, of course, fell by the wayside, but there's some that's went on to be film producers. There's some that's went on to become computer whiz, just great family men, where they had to go through a program that if they didn't make it through the program, they was going to go to prison, So I'm very proud. I get calls, I get letters all the time still from people who, hey, Pink, man, I just found you on Facebook. You remember me, And I have to just give me your name, the last name. Or you remember when you told, I learned this, I learned that. And it's just a great feeling, So, and of course, I'm 33 years in recovery. So I've had my day. I've been out there. I've rumbled in them streets and played the game and hustled and contracts on my head and all kind of stuff. So I lived the life of the craziness, and I've dined with kings and queens, and I've had the luxury of being, in the presence of great people, and then being on the bottom and hanging out with some of the guys who just, have and had great potential to achieve and to grow. And that's what I like to do, and that's what I do today, and that's what Project Pink is all about.
Bravo, go ahead.
So your last 27 fights, you won 26 of them. You had one draw in that time. The competitor in you, did you want to keep that streak going, or were you like, I'm just walking out on top?
Give me that question again. I'm sorry, I didn't quite.
So your last 27 fights, you won 26 of them, and you had
right.
one draw in between. So you were 26-0-1 in your last 27 fights. Did the competitor in you want to keep that streak going, or did you even know that you had that kind of streak going, or did you just want to walk out on top? with that type of streak going?
No, you know what? I didn't even know. I didn't recognize that. And as you can see, everybody have their issues and problems going on. Just like with Ali, didn't go to the service and got, incarcerated for that. Tyson behind his issues, different ones. I mean, I had my personal problems and issues that was going on, and it just took me away from the game, and I didn't prepare like I should have. No excuses, But that's a good point. I didn't even look at it like that. I hadn't even thought about that. No, it wasn't that I just wanted to leave out and leave it like it was. Of course, I would have wanted to, maintain it. I think I lost to Burbick by 1 round. And that was, I think, still, I'm not happy about it, but, that's the way it was,
Kevin, go ahead.
So I believe it was 87, you fought Mike Tyson.
Yeah.
It was, if I'm not mistaken, it was for a title, right?
Yeah. It was Mike had regained. I lost the belt to Burbick, and then Tyson beat Burbick.
All right. So going into that match, knowing Tyson and how he was fighting and whatnot, what was going on through your mind, like getting ready, prepping for that match, and what were you thinking during the match?
Man, I've told that story so many times, and I'll be honest with you. A win is a win is a win, a loss is a loss is a loss. I just give credit to Mike for winning. I can tell a story about, what happened to me personally, what went on in the ring, but who really cares, it don't matter, Kid was I still call him a kid. He's still a great champion. I love him. I respect him. And, I give him his props, man,
Brian.
Well, Pink, you alluded to it earlier, that you dealt with, substance abuse, early in your career, but you were able to rise above, and you managed to stay clean for over 30 years now. Can you tell us what it was that got things turned around for you?
Yeah. And it's really crazy, man, because I didn't become clean till I was about 31, 29. And it was, I fought Tyson, I fought Holyfield, and all the way up from a kid, and then I can remember when I was about 20 and I started to fight, and I went into the gym, and I did a speedball, and I was boxing this big guy named Larry Frazier, and Larry hit me. I seen a punch coming, and I couldn't get away from it, and I got really nauseated and sick. And I said, man, I ain't doing this no more. But I did continue to smoke weed, drink, and do different things, But at the end, when I fought Holyfield, and I was down in Miami with Angelo Dundee, and Angelo was working with me, and, I went out really bad. Now, I blew a show that I was supposed to do and with Angelo, a color commentary show. And Angelo, I went, and Betty called me and said I need to come over there right away. Angelo was mad. And I went up there, and he never looked at me. And he told me, Betty, he didn't want to have nothing to do with me no more. He said, go get his files. There was a bank down here. I had to safe deposit box. Get everything out, leave him alone, blah, blah. I don't want to have nothing else to do with him no more. He ain't say goodbye when he kicked me out of the office, you know, but he just said, Betty, take his belongings with him and tell him to go. And all this was right in front of me. And I went to treatment. And I mean, I went out really bad. I did go to treatment, and I got out after I was out about probably a month and a half. Betty called me, and I left Miami and went back to Michigan, and nobody but God knew where I was. And I was 16 miles from my family in Michigan, in Southfield. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I get a call from Betty. And Betty calls my mother in my father's house and said, Pink, she said, Angela wants you to come and do this show. And I said, are you serious? I get choked up. I'm sorry. You know, I can always get choked up when I talk about that guy, man. I don't know why. But they asked me they told me they were sending me tickets. They wanted me to come to do the show. And it was in March, and the show was going to be, the press conference was going to be in April. And he had Ali, he had Ernie Shavers, he had Jimmy Ellis, he had Willie Pep, and he had Willie Pastrana. And they invited me to come out. And we all got together and stuff, and the next thing you know, I mean, and that's what really got me straight, man. When he hit me on the head and made me just told me they didn't want to have nothing else to do with me. And I went to treatment and I dealt with it. And I smoked, I drank, I did everything until I got out of, I made a vow to myself. And once I left that treatment center, I wasn't going to smoke another cigarette, and I wasn't going to use another drug, and I wasn't going to drink again. And only through the grace that I'm still here today. And that's how me and Angelo became very close. He always told me I was the greatest. And I would say, no, Muhammad was the greatest. And he said, no, you're the greatest. And I said, no, man, come on, Muhammad's the greatest. He said, no, you know why? He said, because Pink, he said, you've been through more than Carter got pills, and you rise to the occasion, you come out. He said, man, and look at you now. He said, I love you, man, for doing it or cleaning up myself. And it was, through him, that really helped me. I want to be, got me clean. I had to do it myself, but it was a tough, oh man, I got hit with a shot that I couldn't take it. I couldn't take it, man. To have to go out like that and then not recover would have been would have been a sin to me. I just couldn't do it for someone who had been so good to me.
Kevin, I owe you a question from last show, so go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you could just tell us a little bit about your book, Back from the Edge of Hell.
Yeah, Back from the Edge of Hell. This is my book right here. And my beautiful wife is on there. And on the back of the book tells you, where I've been and what I've been through, tell you a little bit about myself. And the book is just a biography about from the bottom to the top as a kid, going through the drugs, the lifestyle, the contracts on my head, finding boxing. The recovery from I had hepatitis, the recovery from that, when they came out with the blue pill, it wasn't Viagra. It was the pill, the pill that took away the help seed. And I did that, and then I came down with prostate cancer, and I had to make a choice to live or die. And I've had people who made the wrong decision, and I restored myself from that, and just went on to continue on to live the day and be happy, man, but it tells some great stories in here about the fight that I fought and how I got it. But more importantly, I didn't write this book to make money. I wrote this book to give it away. I give it away to people. Of course, you can get it off Amazon. I give this book away because guys who caught up in the rhythm of the lifestyle, the drugs, living fast and don't think that they can get out of it. Man, when you read this book, you're going to realize that there is a God, and I know it was only him that brought me through, and the grace and the prayers of my parents and everybody who believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. That's
So
what it's
we'll get you out of here with this. For years, Larry Holmes was ducking you. Was he afraid of you?
Hey, you know what? I wasn't even going to say nothing. I wasn't going to say nothing about that. And I'm still not going to say it, man. I think this would be the first show I never even said nothing about that or said nothing about Larry. Hey, Larry, I love Larry. I seen in the passing another great champion. Yeah, we know what it was, so that's all that really mattered. Between me and God and the people who really believed in the pink man and knowing about the left jab and, how threatening I could have been, or that's all I have to say. Great champion, a lot of love. A lot of love to all the great champions out there, man. I ain't got nothing but respect for everybody. Everybody in the sport has brought it all together and made it happen. I'm just not really happy about the division now and how things are going. But hopefully, one day it'll all come together again. But my thing is, that's what I do now. I train with our old school train. I teach the spinning, the pulling, the kick outs, the old school boxing, the slip slide, the old Georgie Benton, the nice defense, the slip and roll, type stuff that you don't hardly see no more. And you have a lot of kids, young men, who are armchair experts who, they think they know what they don't. And you got Angelo, Georgie, these guys were teachers. They could talk you through it. And the day I learned that, I ain't got to be all physical. I ain't got to get up and do a hand pad. I ain't got to, do it. I sit down in my chair and I give instruction. I can put my foot down and say, yeah, you put your foot here, put your foot there, raise your hand, get at this angle, So I'm happy to have had some of the great trainers that I've had to give me what I got and have accomplished to be able to give back.
Well, congratulations on the Hall of Fame. That is an honor. We are all going to look forward to seeing that and checking that out. I can't say congratulations enough. And thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Hey, look, Mike, I appreciate it. I really do, man. I'm just elated again. I want to thank you for having me. And it was a great honor to get the call and say I was invited, being inducted. And looking forward to it. So I look forward to maybe hollering back again sometime soon. Okay.
Absolutely. Everybody make sure you hit subscribe on whatever you're listening on, and have a good night.